Anin, bonjour. My name is Laura Gilmore, and I'm speaking to you today from Western Algonquin Park area near Dwight. This is traditional Anishinaabe and Huron territory. Most recently, this was a hunting territory for the Miigwetch family in Miigwetch tribe. That's from some research I've done. I'm super thankful to be the caretaker of a beautiful piece of property of woods that backs on to the Algonquin Park area. And on this property here, I live with my husband and my dog, and we have chickens and rabbits, and we have gardens where we grow food, and we grow all different types of medicines that we plant in our gardens, and that we also plant a bit in the wild areas around here. I have a business called Wild Muskoka Botanicals, where I harvest some plants from our region in a sustainable way. Then I use them to make different food and medicine products. I also share about plants in this region. It's really important to me to share about these teachings about the plants and getting people to connect back to the land through working in good relations with the plants and the medicines in this region. So I take people on foraging walks, and we look at the different plants and mushrooms that you can eat, and plants that you can eat, and medicines, and teach people how to make medicines. So today I wanted to share. I'm very thankful Melanie from the Parry Sound Friendship Center has asked me to share about some winter medicines, and so I wanted to share about some of my favorite coniferous trees, the evergreen trees that are such good medicines to work with at this time of year. So let's go, and I'm gonna take you into the woods and through the deep, deep snow we have here, and we'll go meet a few of our medicine tree relatives. Hi. So this is the first medicine that I want to speak about. This is balsam fir. So if you don't know this tree, this is an evergreen tree. I'm going to pan so you can see a big tree that I'm underneath of right now. The bark on this tree is kind of smooth, and it's covered in these big blisters. Hopefully you can see these bumps. So it has these bumps all over it. I'll talk more about them in a minute. The leaves of this tree, it has these beautiful branches, and the needles are flat on the stem. They don't go all the way around. And if I harvest an individual needle and I try to roll it between my fingers, it's flat. So it can't roll. On the top side of these needles, it's a solid green, and on the underside, there's actually two white lines. And that's one way that you can tell it from, there's actually a poisonous shrub. When we're talking about these conifers that we can work with for food and medicine, the only one we need to know about that's poisonous that grows in our area is called Canada yew. So Canada yew, the branches, the actual leaves, would look similar to this. But the difference is Canada yew will never grow on a big trunk like this. Canada yew would look like a bunch of the branches of this tree. So it would look like a bunch of branches like this, but just all stuck in the ground. There's not a main trunk that they grow off of. The other difference is the Canada yew will have those flat needles with a nice green top, but the underside of the Canada yew is just a brown. It doesn't have those white lines. Those white lines on the underside of these leaves are, they're called stoma bands. It's like the scientific term. But what's neat about that, that's the cell of the tree where they breathe from. And I think about how beautiful it is that as humans, we can have this relationship with trees through our breath. So the trees breathe out oxygen, and then as humans, we take that in, and we breathe out carbon dioxide, and the trees take that in. So just through my breath, I'm having a relationship with these beautiful trees. So all of our coniferous trees that are safe to work with, the balsam fir being one of them, is the needles are really high in vitamin C. So you can make tea from this. It's not my favorite for making tea. I'll talk about my favorite a little later. But you can make tea from this, and it is good medicine just for the winter for high vitamin C. What I work with mostly with balsam fir is actually what's called the oleo resin. It's what's in these little blisters. So if I'm in the bush and I am, especially in the wintertime, you're cutting trees, working with saws and knives, working around fires. If you get a cut, one time I was sawing with my little hand saw, and the saw actually kicked up and went across the knuckles of my other hand that was holding a piece of wood, and so it was cut in a way that was really difficult to bandage. So I came to one of these balsam fir trees, and I, with gratitude of the tree, and I'll put some tobacco down after to thank the tree for this. I popped a blister, and you can see that it weeps. See that resin? That's an oleo resin. And I always think of it like nature's, liquid bandage, or like one of those little antiseptic wipes. It's perfectly packaged. There's no bugs or anything weird in this resin, but it's nice and clean, and I can put that directly in my cuts and my burns, and it will act like a bandage, and will keep the wound clean and covered. It'll get dirtier from the outside, but you can know that it's like sealed over, and the antiseptic meaning it will not get infected. This is also highly flammable. So if everything is really wet in the forest and you can't get a fire going, I'll look for balsam fir, and you can always find those dead small branches like this underneath a balsam fir tree, and I'll come and rub those small branches and some of that oleo resin, and then when you light a match to this, it goes right up, and it will get even wet wood burning. So in the wintertime, a good warm fire is medicine. So that's the balsam fir, and that's a few of its uses that I like to use it for. And so we'll go see another tree. The next tree I would like to talk about is this spruce tree. This is a white spruce. You can see a big tree next to me. It's actually, it's about a medium size. But this is a white spruce. There's also black spruce. White spruce tends to grow in the wetter or drier areas. The black spruce will grow in the more black spruce will grow in swamps where it's wet. But you can use both of them quite similarly. So the spruce in the winter time, you can harvest the needles and make tea. I will also harvest the bark from the branches. I try not to harvest bark from the trunk of a tree, but I will harvest it from the branches. And you can do this with the balsam fir as well. And I boiled it and made a really, really strong tea from it, and added honey to sweeten it and made it a syrup. And that is a really powerful cough syrup. And that cough syrup, when you taste it, it actually has very similar taste to Buckley's, because the Buckley's is made with balsam fir, and balsam fir and spruce bark are very antiseptic. They will help heal, again, soothe the lungs, but also, be really good to help beat a cough. And I'm going to also teach how to do a lung steam later in this video for helping winter coughs. But one of my favorite ways that I actually use white spruce, how I work with it the most, it's for food. And I will, in the springtime, in early June, when the black flies first come out, that's always when it happens, but when the black flies first come out, I will come and harvest from the tips the new growth. You only go around a tree and harvest some here and there, but I will harvest that new growth that when it's really young, just opening, it's like lime green and really soft. It's not hard and spiky yet. And I will take those spruce tips and eat them and infuse them in apple cider vinegar. I'll pick a jar and put a bunch of spruce tips in and cover it with apple cider vinegar and let it steep for a month. And that's a really yummy, it makes really yummy salad dressings. I will also harvest those spruce tips and grind them like in a little coffee grinder, mix them with sea salt, and use that with other herbs like sweet gale and sweet fern and wild leek, and make nice spices for cooking with. Those spruce tips are really delicious. So how we tell a spruce tree from the balsam fir that we were looking at, because the tree can look very similar, but the needles actually go all the way around the stems. And when I was showing you that the balsam fir have flat needles, that when you try to roll it between your finger, it can't move, these will actually roll in your finger. They have sharp edges. They're kind of square, but you can roll them. So that's one way I can tell spruce from balsam fir. But yeah, it's a good food. Spruce tips are really good food in the spring. The other way that I will use balsam fir, or spruce, we're talking about spruce. The way that I will use the spruce is I will also harvest the resin from this tree like I do the balsam fir. But what's different is that the spruce trees, if they get their branches pruned, a little hard, close to the stem, or if they get damaged somehow in the forest, or even there's times I've seen where the bears have come and marked the trees. But the spruce will form these big globs of resin along their stem, unlike the balsam fir where it has those little pockets that it's a watery resin. The spruce will form these hard balls of resin, and that resin you can harvest. It can be used to make pitch for doing canoes, as well as the roots from the spruce are used for building canoes and birch bark containers. But the resin is also good medicine for the skin. It will help heal and protect. So in the wintertime, I think about times where, you're out skiing or snowmobiling or ice fishing, and the wind, the really dry winter skin, your cheeks and your hands, from doing work outside, I will mix that spruce resin. I will warm it in oil on like a double boiler on my wood stove. You can also do it in bear grease if you have bear fat around, rendered bear fat. It makes a good minigan that way. Skin balm. And the spruce resin is really protective to the skin. So that's why I use it in the wintertime when I'm going out onto the land and the winter winds are really harsh on the skin or on your lips. They're cracking. Your hands are cracking. That spruce resin mixed with either an olive oil or bear fat is such a good winter medicine for the skin. So that's a few ways of how I use spruce medicine. So we'll go on and talk about one more tree, and then we'll make some medicine. So I'm here at the last tree I'm going to talk about for now. This is a white pine that's next to me. So I'm actually here with a small one. There's a few of them right here, but you can see a big one behind me. Probably all familiar with these trees. They're very characteristic in this territory. The white pine has bunches of needles, and these ones, the bunches actually have 5, and they're nice and soft. The red pine and the Scots pine and jack pine, they have bundles of 2 or 3, but they're the sharp ones, where the white pine's a really soft one. This is my favorite one for working with. I really love this tree a lot. It's my favorite tree. And the white pine is very specific. The needles are, again, like the other conifers, really high in vitamin C. This one tastes really nice, though. I really love the taste of white pine. Wintergreen, which is found under the snow. I can't find any because the snow's too deep right now, but white pine and wintergreen tea is one of my favorite mixes. I will also harvest these needles, and I'm going to harvest some today for teaching you how to make a lung steam medicine, but I will also harvest the needles and cut them up and use them as a spice. I'll often mix them with rosemary, and I will use them on like venison or moose roasts, or when I roast a chicken, or like a duck. I really like to use this as in like meat rubs. It's a really, really good medicine, a really good flavor, and it's also a really good medicine. I think it's like our local version of rosemary is how I always think about white pine. So the needles we can harvest, I'm actually going to pick some from along our trail here, since I have to clear it back anyway, because these branches are growing into the trail. And we'll use it for making the tea and the lung medicine. I also harvest the bark. You can eat the inner bark of white pine. And you can make baskets. So I'm actually going to harvest the pine needles in my pine bark basket. So this is made with a solid piece of bark that was harvested from a tree that had to be thinned, that we cut down. And then it's folded. So this basket's hard now, but it was made when the bark was fresh, so it was soft and pliable. I think we made this basket in it was during the summer, and so when the tree is actively growing, it's easier to harvest. It's easier to get the bark off of the stem. And so the needles are really good. The bark has good medicine. Again, you can put the bark like the spruce and the balsam fir also in cough medicines. And another really important medicine that the pines have, all of the pines, is the pollen. So later in the year, in June, you know, when the yellow pollen covers everything, you see it along the lakes and gets covered in your cars. That pollen, I will actually go to these trees and find the little pollen cones before they drop the pollen. They'll be yellow, but still a little sticky and wet. And I harvest those and I dry them on trays. And then I will sift out with a little metal kind of colander that white or the yellow pollen powder from the husk, and I will save the pollen powder and I will use it because it's incredibly full of B vitamins and zinc and magnesium, and it also can help to protect your body from radiation. So if you have to get x-rays or different things like that, can be really helpful for our bodies. It's also a really good supplement for men, helps keep their testosterone levels up, which is good for their health and vitality and their strength. So pine is a very important medicine. And this time of year, I drink the tea and I use those lung steams if I get a cough or my lungs just feel heavy from being around a lot of fires and smoke. So I'll probably have to put my phone down, my camera down here, when I actually harvest. But I'm going to harvest these branches that grow right into the path. I've got my tobacco, my sema here. So I'll put the tobacco down and I'll thank the tree for what it's got to offer. And then we'll go inside and I'll show you how I make pine tea and I do the lung steam. I'm going to show you how to do a good herbal lung steam. So these are really helpful if someone has a cough and congestion and they're having a bit of a hard time breathing. This steam that we can do with the pine that I harvested can be really helpful to just help clear out that congestion and make breathing a little easier. Also, if someone's lungs feel a little irritated from too much smoke or if the house has been really dry, this can be really helpful. So I'm going to take a few good handfuls of the white pine that I harvested outside, and I'm just going to chop it up a little bit. You can do it whole, but the more you chop it up, the more that you'll release the really good essential oils that are in the pine. Chopping these with a pair of scissors. You can do this with the balsam fir. You can do it with cedar. Cedar medicine is also good this way. As I'm cutting these needles, I can really smell that pine. It smells really nice. This is the white pine that I'm doing this with, but you can also do it with the red pine. Whatever you have growing in your backyard, you can use. So just chopping this up. pretty good, just about a nice good sized handful. And then what I'm going to do is I just boiled my kettle, so I've got super hot boiling water, and I got the herbs in a bowl, nice open bowl. And then what I'm going to do is use this towel. I'm going to get it ready so that as soon as I pour the hot water onto the pine, then I'm going to put my face over that underneath this towel, and I'll get a few good deep breaths of this pine, and it'll also be good for my skin. I'm going to take my glasses off because I have glasses. So here we go. Pour just enough hot water to cover the pine. Don't have to use too much. You can see it's steaming already. And then we'll do the steam. Just taking nice, slow, deep breaths. It smells really good. You can see that I'm sitting. One thing that I've learned from helping people when I use these myself or when I help someone else do one of these lung steams is I always get them to sit down, because that really hot steam hitting the face, if someone is standing, it can make them a little dizzy. So make sure the person is seated, and then just kind of put the towel over top their head, let them do nice, slow, deep breathing. Sometimes it can make people cough a little bit, but often it's good if it's the kind of congestion in your lungs that you need to get that mucus out. It's nice to get people to actually cough a little bit. That's why it's nice to have them seated. But this smells so good. That pine oil and the steam feels so good in my lungs, and it's really nice even for your skin, for your face. And so this is a really simple medicine that you can offer someone, an elder or a child, or even if it's someone you don't know, even if you don't know too much about herbal medicine. It's a really simple practice that can really help with winter lung health. And we've got such good medicine trees that grow in our region and in our communities. And this is a really simple way that you can use them. And then you can even, after you've done the lung steam, you can strain these pine needles out and then drink the tea. And then it's a really good way to get that good vitamin C along with all of those essential oils that you breathed in for lung health. So there's the simple white pine steam inhalation, and you can make some white pine tea from the leftovers. So Miigwetch for coming on the tree walk with me. Miigwetch to all my teachers and to the land. And thank you so much for tuning in.